When I started my research on the Philippines almost 4 years ago, if I'm being completely honest, the main pull for me at the time was similar to many men, which was the lure of the fantasy of finding a nice, young, pretty Filipina to complete my life in a cost-efficient country where I could live out my years relatively comfortably, leading a stress-free, simple, modest life. Also, like most men, I had stumbled across a video of a guy sat with a young, pretty Filipina who looked way out of his league. And like most men, this got me thinking, or rather fantasizing, of how this could look for me. And over time, I immersed myself in all things the Philippines, a variety of vloggers proudly proclaiming how easy it was to bag a hottie, to get the attention of young, sweet, attractive, sexy Filipinas with their soft-scented, traditional, feminine, caring, loving character as loyal partners and homemakers, combined with the hidden undertones of a fiery, passionate bedroom manner, together with their dark, morena skin, long black hair, appealing to those who prefer a more exotic look, made the whole idea seem somewhat intoxicating. Now overlay this with the fact that in general, age gap relationships are mostly tolerated as part of their culture. It's enough to give most men cause to, at the very least, run away with the whole fantasy of it. I seem to remember back then a vlogger mentioning a particular dating site catering specifically to men interested in Asian women, and so began my journey of the contentious subject of LDR. Yes, the long-distance relationship. Now, the only way that I can describe this is like opening a Pandora's box to a world of illicit temptation. There are various stages that a man goes through as he disappears down this particular rabbit hole. The wow stage is the realization that it's not just the fact that girls seem interested in you, but in the age range that this spans across. For any guy, that's intoxicating enough, but for a middle-aged guy or older, it's like getting your hands on the latest version of a video game and feeling like you're actually on the Hall of Fame. Actually being able to communicate with girls of all ages ranging from 40s to 30s, yes, even 20s, and occasionally even teens. So there you are, sat in your back bedroom office, immersed in this new Disney world of frantic messages. Your heart races at the first response to your, "Hi, how are you?" She replies, "I'm fine, and you?" You're typing at a speed and at a pace that could win an Olympic gold medal, and with a mental focus as if you're working in the ATC room of guiding in Boeing 747s. You respond by telling her that you're fine and that you think she's so pretty, and she immediately thanks you for your admiration and asks you where you're from. And in reality, as long as you're from a country in the West, it really doesn't make much difference, preferably one of those main four: US, UK, Australia, Canada, and some parts of Europe. So you tell her you're from one of those, and she responds, "Nice country." You then say, "Yes, but I'm looking to come to the Philippines." She then says, "So when you coming?" And you respond, "Soon." Now, in reality, most guys, probably 90%, haven't got the slightest intention or even idea if they were going to. But right now, that doesn't matter. You're speaking to a 21-year-old exotic stunner, something you haven't done in ever. Now, if the girl is really switched on, one of the first few questions that she'll be asking you is about your work. Are you married? Do you have kids? This immediately obliterates 90% of the guys over the age of 35. However, it's up to the individual how they choose to respond to that. Although it's always better to tell the truth, sometimes we gild the lily or outright lie. So you tell her you're a solicitor or a stockbroker or an architect or a lawyer or whatever, and you're single with no kids. Tell her the truth, but you're unemployed and married with 4 kids, and it's game over. It's usually at about this time where your mind projects into the future, scenes of you meeting her at the airport, making your way to a hotel in Manila or Cebu, filled with the nights of passion memorized out of a scene of Pornhub Asia. Both of your wildest fantasies fulfilled. You spend the next few days doing more of the same while tearing around the city, wining and dining, holding hands, laughing and looking forward to a wonderful future together. And it's usually around this point where the missus or one of the kids calls upstairs, "Dinner's ready." Snap back to reality in a matter of seconds. What you just experienced in those few moments of escapism was a rush equivalent to 2 weeks away in Amsterdam or Las Vegas with the boys. And you never even left your armchair. Just kidding. Over the course of the following days and weeks, glued to your phone, you fall deeper and deeper for this girl. This young, sexy, exotic girl that you find yourself daydreaming of. Every possible situation you could find yourself in with this person. Could you really start a new life in a far distant place? Could it really work out? Every time you video call, the intensity of emotion strengthens as you divulge and confess the subtle nuances of your admiration for each other. You both are asking and answering questions, trying to gauge the sincerity of each other's intentions while learning about each other's needs and wants and likes and dislikes. It's only been a couple of weeks and she's already using the magic phrase, "I love you." This is the one chance in your life you've been waiting for to live the dream. You can't stop yourself, so you say the magic phrase right back. It sounds weird at first, but it feels good. One day she answers your call though, almost in tears, and when you've managed to calm her down, she tells you that her aunt is ill and needs medication. She says that the meds are too expensive and they can't afford them. So you ask how much, and she replies 1,000 pesos, around $17. No problem, you say. I'll help. You then suggest paying by PayPal, but she prefers Western Union so that she can collect the cash. She seems to know all about this. Great, you're a hero, you save the day, and a few days later during another call, she looks a bit sad. You find out that her aunt needs these meds for a while longer, as the doctor suggested a few weeks or so. Again, you quickly work out that it's not going to break the bank. Okay, $17 a week, so you tell her you're really too pleased to help. What you don't know is that unfortunately, unbeknown to you, she's been doing the same routine. 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, even 50 other guys from around the world at the same time. There's been the odd occasion where you've wondered why you haven't been able to get hold of her, and sometimes her excuses seem just a little bit off, but you brushed it aside and reminded yourself of how much she says she loves you. And it's herein that lies the problem. You see, before COVID, these pretty little Filipinas had evening or weekend jobs to pull in a couple of hundred pesos a week to cover their general spend. But during COVID, a lot of that stopped. So it didn't take long for some of the more savvy girls to realize that potential help was available from some of these thousands of rich millionaire Western guys. So as time went by, they became more creative and cunning in their ways of being able to extract money from multiple guys at the same time, therefore providing potential stream of income, not just for the girl, but for her family as well. Now, I myself am well versed in the LDR arena, having spoken with easily over 700 during the course of the last 3 years or so before coming to the Philippines. The first phase is it's all new and exciting, like a playground of romance and naughtiness. But slowly, after time, gaining the exposure to every single possible excuse under the sun as to why you should send them money, you realize that a high percentage of them have only one agenda. Now, I'm not necessarily knocking them for this, as sometimes needs must, and during COVID, while the Western world is being paid to sit at home and watch Netflix, if you're living in abject poverty and there's no support or safety net, you've got to do what you've got to do. The taste of all these Filipino hungry guys from all over the world being suckered into parting with their cash, from can you give me some low data for my phone so I can chat to you, all the way through to the long-term bill me a house scam. When you've been introduced to the family members and spent months with the I love yous, there's a small percentage of gullible men with their Achilles heel for romance. Maybe they're getting old, maybe they're lonely, maybe they're just enjoying the thrill of chatting to a young, sexy Filipina. So they buy into this fantasy and create a narrative that fuels it. There's a variety of different reasons that can cause a man to ignore these little red flags that pop up and brush them aside, then dip their hand into their pocket. For some skilled Filipinos, it can be very, very lucrative, and I've lost count of the number of horror stories of a Westerner that over the course of a year or so, without ever setting one foot into the country, has fallen for a girl in an LDR and be persuaded to build a house with a view to him living with her at some point in the future, only to find that when they turn up, they're told to F off and never return again. The guy has no rights, he can't own a property in his name, it has to be in her name. He has effectively been taken to the cleaners. Not a nice position to be in, and the dream comes to an end. You've lost your savings and the girl, and now you have to deal with it. The peril of thinking with your little head instead of your big head. I know a guy here in his mid-60s who had a friend who is no longer around because he fell victim to this precise situation. As stupid and naive as it was, he apparently couldn't cope with how the situation turned out, hit the bottle, and it was a downward spiral into the end. Very sad indeed. However, when somebody asks you for money, you have a choice. You can either put your hand in your pocket and pull it out or not. There is a full process that you go through, and at every stage an opportunity to say the word no. Even more of a process to go through is sending money from your account to Western Union or through PayPal. First of all, you have to reach the conclusion that you will send money. Then you have to open your banking or Western Union app. Then you have to type in all the details, and there are a number of safeguards in place that could give you any time the opportunity to back out. And if you've gone through the entirety of all of those and still decided to press the send button, ultimately, the responsibility and accountability is with yourself. The cliche, a fool and his money is easily parted, springs to mind here. Coupled with the second cliche, there's no fool like an old fool. The simple antidote to all of this is that tiny but very powerful word, no. Learn it, rehearse it, practice it, and embrace it. The second stage is that now you've heard every ask in just about every possible way, the nice shiny of this virtual playground starts to take on a more sobering undertone of what you're really dealing with. There are indeed some genuine nice girls who just want to meet a Westerner because they've heard good things about them. Maybe they're curious, maybe some of them also want a better life, and there's nothing wrong with that. After all, it's one of the first things that most Western women around the world look for. Are you solvent? Will you give me a great life with a 5-bedroom detached house in a gated community, with a double garage, with a Porsche Cayenne and a Tesla parked in it? Will we go on vacation, skiing at Aspen in the winter, Maldives in the summer, and will my 2, 3, 4 privately educated protege be born into a standard of living that the other mothers and the kids enjoy? But after a while, you do start to wonder, is this 20-something beautiful exotic girl from the Philippines that I've been investing my time and effort in on a regular basis really into me as much as I'm into her? There's no way to be certain, and therein lies the risk. So you come to the conclusion that it's just a numbers game, and you spend most of your time filtering through the can I house and the will you gives. By now, you've figured that around 25% or so at best fall into this category. But undeterred, on you go in search of that special one. The third stage is when you finally realize that even when you've filtered down to the small handful of really good girls that are genuine and serious and really into you, you then have to continue with one of them until the point where you actually make the move to the Philippines. And by now, your small handful is reduced even further. And you've almost got to the point when you've become a little disillusioned by it all. The reality that you've seen a photo of someone from thousands of miles away, struck up a conversation, moved to a video call, and continued that process for as many weeks or months, or in some situations, years. The reality dawns on you that you will then meet this person, and that's when you're really put to the test. Because not only do you have to meet each other's physical expectations, but then you actually have to get on with each other in person and have things in common. And even when all of that's good, all that happens is that you're now in the classic situation of a normal relationship. where you will then end up living together, discovering all their annoying little habits that you weren't aware of. And spending day after week after month with somebody is very different from the exciting video calls back and forth that you've only experienced so far. The first year, the honeymoon period, it's all new and exciting, and most of the time, you're very forgiving and understanding of one another. The second year, you're becoming much more familiar and start establishing rules for one another. If by this time you're beating all the odds and you're lucky enough to be in the third year, those little hairline fractures that have started to become cracks now. But wait, you didn't, did you? Did you actually do it? Did you succumb to her demure? Did you cave in and actually marry her when she pressured you in the first year, when everything seemed so perfect and her family was so welcoming? The same family that now expects you to bankroll them until the end of time. From mothers to brothers to cousins and aunties and uncles, and their never-ending list of requests for various emergencies. Oh dear, you did, didn't you? You got married in a country where there's practically no divorce law. Yikes. If only you could rewind 3 years and unclick that send message. But you can't, can you? I'm sorry? What's that you said? She had something to tell you this morning? Really? What did she say? Oh, she's not. Almost 2 months already. Well, good luck with that.